So good afternoon. We are going to talk about Indian economy. Now, before talking about Indian economy, we must understand the past, the present, maybe to some extent the future of Indian economy. So the chapter that we'll be doing today is on the eve of independence, the economy on the eve of independence. Now, on the eve of independence means the economy before 1947. As I just stated you, Indian economy can be divided into three parts. We can divide to understand India as an economy. We have to divide it into three parts. The first part is before it 1947, right? So this is the first part. We call it British rule. The second part is between 1947 to 1991. This was the period when India got independence. There were number of problems, right? So the governments have thought of number of issues and areas and concerns, and they tried to overcome all these issues and concerns. The next and the most important part, which is prevalent even these days, is after 1991. So the economy changed after 1991 because the government introduced liberalization, privatization, and globalization, the result of which we are viewing today. Now, in the first chapter, we are going to talk about economy on the eve of independence. What do we mean by this word economy on the eve of independence? The economy on the eve of independence simply stated that the economy before 1947. Now, what was this period जिसको हम 1947 के उसमें recognize करते हैं? 1947 was the period of our independence, and before 1947 we were being ruled by Britishers. Now Britishers have their own thoughts. ऐसा नहीं है that Britishers did only crime to us. They only did the negative things for us. They did few positives as well. We'll try and understand all those things one by one into this chapter, right? So before starting with the Indian economy on the eve of independence, we must understand few points. The points are related to the conditions of Indian economy during the pre-British period. ब्रिटिशर्स से पहले इंडिया का इकोनॉमी सिचुएशन कैसा था, क्या होता था इंडिया की इकोनॉमी में. So it would not be wrong to say that India was an independent economy before the British rule. The agriculture was the main source of living for most of the people, right? Rather, for the majority of the population, around 72% of the people were into agriculture only. Country का economy was characterized by various kinds of manufacturing activities. ऐसा नहीं था कि हमारे यहाँ मैन्युफैक्चरिंग नहीं होती थी उस ब्रिटिशर्स से पहले. वी वर डूइंग मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑल्सो, जैसे सिल्क के कपड़े, जैसे क्लोथ्स, मेटल, प्रेशियस स्टोन्स का कार्विंग, राइट, कॉटन कॉटन के कपड़े. सो ये सब चीज़ें पहले भी बनती थी बिफोर द एडवेंट ऑफ ब्रिटिशर्स. Now, India was well known for its handicrafts industries. Since time immemorial, हम लोग हाथों का काम से ही जाने जाते हैं. We are the best in the handicrafts rather, right? So traditional products are very good. Even these days are well recognized. So it was there previously as well before the British rules. Now these products enjoyed the worldwide market based on our reputation. हमारी reputation with the handicrafts were very good. Even we were also considered the best in the silk industry or metal and precious stones. So हम लोग best consider होते थे उस time पे. Now, next point and important to discuss is Indian economy during the colonial rule. Colonial rule का मतलब है Britishers जब हमारे ऊपर राज करते थे, when they had India as a king, as their own kingdom, right? So the Britishers, the important factors that Britishers touched with our economy is that economic policies that were followed by the colonial government were concerned with the protection and promotion of the economic interest of their own country rather than the development of India as an economy. Now वो लोग इंडिया की बजाय अपने कंट्री के इंटरेस्ट में ज्यादा ध्यान देते थे. They never considered India, they only considered India as their own colony. They used to take the raw material from India, and the Indian consumers were forced to buy the finished products from the industries of Britain. The colonial government never made any sincere attempt to estimate India की national capital और per capita income. कभी भी कोई सही किसी ने estimate किया ही नहीं है. The first estimate for per capita income or national income of India was done by Dadabhai Naoroji, William Digby, Finlay Shreyas, VK, RV Roy, and RC Desai. So इन लोगों ने they tried to measure India's national and per capita income during this colonial rule. Colonial period में इन लोगों ने they tried to study the national income and the per capita income during this colonial period. Now, in order to understand India as an economy, we must understand few factors that actually affect India. So these are the factors that affect the pre-independence, post-independence, or after 91 period as well. So what are those factors? Like in the above discussions, we talked about India as an agriculture sectoral economy. So the factors that may include are that affect Indian economy are the agriculture sector, the industrial sector, the demography, the occupational structure, foreign trade, and social infrastructure. So we'll talk about all of them one by one, right? So we'll start with the agriculture sector. Now we said that agriculture was primarily the basic source of income for India. Now, having said that, were we very good in agriculture during the British rule? No, we were not. The employment was maximum. Agriculture का सबसे बड़ा character क्या था during the British rule? That we had the maximum people employed of the country in agriculture. Secondly, the income was meager. So we were not getting the income as was required, right? So agriculture sector was also in doldrums, though maximum population was engaged in agriculture related activities, or we can say primary sector related activities. Now, Indian economy under the British rule was fundamentally agrarian. Agriculture related economy थी. Agriculture during this period was under stagnation. Stagnation पे था. It was not increasing. The productivity, if you actually understand, the productivity was very low during this British rule, right? So agriculture productivity became low. Stagnation in the agriculture sector was caused mainly because of the various systems of land and revenue settlement. One of those systems were zamindari system, so which was introduced by colonial government. Now, what was zamindari system? Zamindari system was a system whereby the profit accruing out of the agriculture sector went to the zamindars instead of the farmers. So the tillers of the soil and the owners of the soil were different. Now, these tillers or the farmers used to pay exorbitant rent to the zamindars, but zamindars collect that rent, keep it with themselves, or they try and deposit a fixed amount with the Britishers. Now, interest on zamindars was only to collect rent without considering the economic condition of the cultivators. Inadequate technology, lack of irrigation facilities, and fertilizers contributed to the low level of agriculture productivity. The next most important point that led to failure of agriculture in India during the British rule was the commercialization of agriculture. Before the Britishers, Indians used to have sustainable development, which means that Indians tried only to produce the goods to the extent which is required at their homes for their families. But after Britishers, Indians, or rather Britishers forced the Indians to manufacture the goods which were required by Britishers for their clothes, like we can say indigo, right? So instead of producing food and food crops, the farmers were producing cash crops, which were ultimately used by Britishers for their development. Now, Indian agriculture faces the low investment, flood control, drainage, etc. These were the main points that led to the low agriculture growth. The most important point which was actually affecting the agriculture was low level of productivity. Now, please understand that the productivity per hectare was extremely low in 1947 when the India got its independence, right? We were primarily dependent on monsoon for any irrigation. Though we were called as a rich nation for water, still the agriculture was, there were no schemes that led the water to flow to the farmers' fields. So the monsoon or the irrigation, we were dependent on the monsoon rather than for the on the irrigation facilities for the uplift for the growth of our crops. Zamindari system was a one-sided kind of a system whereby the zamindars were favored, and they used to charge high rents, exorbitant rents from their farmers. Wedge between tillers and owners of the soil. So the tillers of the soil, the people who used to work in the fields, and the people who were owners of those fields. So there was a wedge. ये लोग जो थे, the tillers of the soil were merely given enough for their subsistence. वो सिर्फ उनको अपने रहने के लिए ही देते थे, उनके बारे में कुछ नहीं सोचते थे. Rather, the owners shared the output. They seldom share the cost of producing that output. वो output तो share करते थे, but उसका खर्चा कभी भी share नहीं करते थे. So they were only interested in maximizing their rental income in terms of the share of output. The next and the most important factor that led to low agriculture growth was fragmented holdings. The holdings in India were also fragmented. Farmers were not that rich. So the factor that led to the less growth of agriculture was fragmented holdings as well. फ्रेगमेंटेड होल्डिंग्स का सिंपल मीनिंग होता है दैट उनकी जो होल्डिंग्स है वो बंटी हुई थी. दे वर नॉट स्कैटर्ड, दे वर नॉट at one place. So if I literally say the meaning of the word fragmented, so fragmented holding means a piece here and a piece of land at some other place. So one piece at one place and the other piece at another place. So accordingly, most land holdings were uneconomic. Now the farmers could not buy the scientific techniques, could not use the scientific techniques, because fragmented land holdings the, and it was difficult to use such scientific techniques on those small pieces of land. Forced commercialization, we just discussed about forced commercialization, that Britishers were pressurizing the Indian farmers to sow in the cash crops rather than the crops related to food, right? So we can also say that Indian agriculture, while talking about on the eve of independence, was stagnated. There was a wedge between the soil owners of the soil and the tillers of the soil, and the owners of the soil were never interested in the surplus growth of agriculture. They were only interested in the rental value that they get out of such land holdings, right? So this is the pre-British period for agriculture. Now, this is the primary sector. If we have to talk about the next and the important sector that affected India during Britishers were the industrial sector. Now, what does the industrial sector says? The industrial sector talks about the industrial sector primarily talks about the secondary part of the economy. Secondary part means wo part which affects the production, which gives capital formation to, which helps us in forming the capital for the country. It helps us in getting more revenue for the country. So this is industry. Now, what did the Britishers do with the Indian industry? The India could not develop a sound industrial base under the British rule, right? The country's handicraft industries were declined. Why did this happen? Because the handicrafts in India were enjoying the worldwide reputation of excellence and quality, but the Britishers contributed to their decay as a matter of economic and political policy. So they wanted to downgrade any product that was going all across the world from India. So this is how they tried to do it. Now, how did they do it? The country's handicraft declined. The colonial government systematically deindustrialized India. So what was their method of deindustrializing? First, they make India a mere exporter of raw material. So what we used to export were maybe indigo or maybe cotton. So likewise the raw materials. And secondly, India being the much larger population in one of the largest population countries in the world, so we were considered as a wider market for the finished products. So they used to take the raw material from India and used to dump their finished products into India. The decline of indigenous handicraft industries created massive unemployment in India. Most of the people were actually engaged in um, uh, producing the handicraft products. Another important factor that led to the degradation or degrowth of industrial sector on the eve of independence was disappearance of princely courts. Now, the most of the princes in India were treated as public favored rulers, but the Britishers had no concern with the Indian public. So maybe because of their reputation, the prince or the princely courts were trying to give the best judgments for their people, which may not be so for the Britishers. Now, Britishers implied the end of princely courts and therefore the end of state patronage to the handicrafts. So handicrafts started decaying. We can also say that during the second half of 19th century, modern industry began to take root in India. So we started manufacturing cotton and jute textile mills. The Tata Iron and Steel Company was incorporated in 1907. There was no capital goods industry to help promote further industrialization in India. The growth rate of the new industrial sector and its contribution to GDP remained very small. Area of operation of the public sector limited in railways, power generation, communication, ports, and some other departmental undertakings. So ये थे जहाँ पे public sector limit था, बाकी सब private sector के पास था. So the points that we discussed with the industrial sector degrowth or backwardness of industrial sector during the pre-independence era were handicrafts, the use of raw material. We used to export the raw material and we used to import the finished product from Britishers. The discriminatory tariff policy of the Britishers was also one of the important factors that led to degrowth of Indian industry. We were charged a lot of money, a lot of taxes if we import a product, and if we export a product, sorry, and if we import a product, it was free. So basically, imports were free and exports are taxable. It is exactly opposite these days. India was treated as a dumping ground. They used to manufacture the products and dump it to India. So we talked about princely courts, that all these rulers were not allowed to listen to the grievances of their citizens. We were thrown into the machine era. Machine made products we were started manufacturing, started using rather. So our handicrafts were actually ruined by them. Having said that, it was not the 100% wrong that they did. They started with the introduction of railways, right? So the next point that we have to study with the respect to the Indian economy is the foreign trade. Now, for any country to exist, foreign trade is very important. What is foreign trade? Foreign trade includes the import and export of goods, the import of goods from the other country and export of goods to the other country. So India is an important trading nation since ancient times, right? बहुत सालों से हम लोग बहुत सदियों से Indians are treated as the important trading nation. So the policy of commodity production, trade and tariff followed by colonial government adversely affected the structure, composition and volume of India's foreign trade. Now, discriminatory tariff policy we have already discussed, right? So, discriminatory tariff policy led to the imports being free and the exports being taxable. India became an exporter of primary products such as raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, indigo, jute, etc., and an importer of finished goods like cotton, silk, woolen clothes, and capital. So the biggest disadvantage of this was that we were getting less amounts as a foreign exchange from on import, and we had to pay more for higher or costlier goods like capital goods or silk or woolen clothes. Right. The next one, the opening of Suez Canal further made more British control over India's foreign trade. Now, Suez Canal, what is Suez Canal? Suez Canal is an artificial waterway that runs from north to south across the Isthmus of Suez in northeastern Egypt. It connects Port Said on the Mediterranean Sea with the Gulf of Suez, an arm of the Red Sea. It is one of the most important waterways in the world. Its opening in 1869 reduced the cost of transportation and made access to the Indian markets easier. The most important characteristic of India's foreign trade during the colonial period was the generation of large export surplus. We were not import surplus. We were not the deficit country. We were foreign exchange or foreign trade surplus country before independence, right? But this surplus came at a huge cost to the country's economy. This export surplus did not result in any flow of gold or silver into India. Once again, please understand, we were export surplus, foreign trade surplus country. Means the value of imports that we used to make was far less than the value of exports that we used to make during the British period, irrespective of the fact that we were only selling or we were only exporting the raw material and we used to import the capital goods, right? So few important points to discuss while talking about foreign trade, and we have already discussed them above, is that we were surplus trade, import was more and export was less. So ours was considered as surplus trade. The direction of trade was mainly with Britain. Now, net becomes net importer of finished goods. So we became the net importer of finished goods and exporter of primary goods. So प्राइमरी गुड्स का हम एक्सपोर्ट करते थे जैसे रॉ मटेरियल एंड ऑल, और हम फिनिश गुड को इंपोर्ट करते थे, राइट? So these were the important factors while talking about the foreign trade. Now, the next important factor that needs discussion during the British period was demographic profile. The demographic profile. What does the demographic profile includes? The demographic profile includes the birth rate, the death rate, the infant mortality rate, okay, the literacy rate, the demographic transition, the life expectancy. So these are the factors that are included into demography. Now, various details about the population of British India were first collected through the census in 1881. We have already read it in the previous slides that this was done by a few of the people who actually wanted to have the to calculate the national income as well. So before 1921, India was in the first stage of demographic transition. The second stage of transition began after 1921. Mortality rate was very high and infant mortality rate was very, very alarming. So the infant mortality rate was 218 per thousand deaths, in contrast to the present infant mortality rate of 40 per thousand only, right? So 218 per thousand was the infant mortality rate. Life expectancy was extremely low. It was 44 years, rather less than this. In the initial years, it was 32 only. I mean, 200 years back, it was 32 years in contrast to the present age of 68 years. So when we talk about the demographic profile, we always talk about the birth rate, we talk about the death rate. When we talk about the birth rate, both the birth rate and the death rate were very, very high. So the birth rate was around 48 per thousand and the death rate was 40 per thousand respectively. So both this birth rate, high death rate suggested for massive poverty in the country during the pre-British period. The infant mortality rate we have just discussed were 218 per thousand as contrast to 40 per thousand these days. Life expectancy, the life expectancy was very very less. It was 32 years in the initial years. It raised to 44 years later on, but these days it is 68 years. So high mortality rate, low life expectancy were the indicators of the backwardness and poverty of the masses that exist during the British period. Frequent famines and recurring epidemics were the main causes that led to high mortality rate. The medicinal facilities, the health facilities were not of the present level during those periods. The literacy rate, 16% of India's population was literate. Even the population of women being literates was much less than this. We are at a 77% literacy rate today, right? So year of great divide, 1921 was treated as year of great divide. Why? Because after 1921 there was a famine or a famine during this period. So after 1921 the population of India grew sharply. So that is why we consider it as year of great divide. 1921 as the year of great divide. Now, the next and the most important factor again to talk about before the independence was is the occupational structure of the country during the British period. Now we have already discussed about this that India remained or was the primary primarily the primary sector economy. Now primary sector means most of the people were into agriculture only, so their occupation structure means the distribution of working person across different industries and sectors. The agriculture sector accounted for the largest share of workforce. From 70 to 75% of the Indian population were into agriculture. The manufacturing and services sector accounted for 10 and 15%, 15 to 20% respectively. So manufacturing was 10% and services did exist. So they were the share of services were more than 15-20% even during the British rule. The principal source of Indian income was agriculture only. Agriculture included the agriculture, the mining, extraction, or even the extraction, or even the fishing. So 72% of the population was in agriculture during the British period. It is around 2% in America. Japan have around 12%. So the population dependent on agriculture was way high in India. Industry was again less. We have already discussed about its figures. So industry was around 10% and tertiary sector was around 17%. The major problem that we faced with regard to the occupation structure was unbalanced growth. Because people were literate, there were no health facilities. So there used to be the unbalanced growth during these times, right? The next and the important factor that describes the country as a developed or undeveloped is underdeveloped is infrastructure. Now, under the British rule, basic infrastructure such as railways, ports, water, transport posts, and telegraph were developed. They did develop something. They did some positive things for India as well. The real motive behind this development was their personal interest rather than Indian interests. They wanted to, why were the railways introduced? Because they wanted to transport their material from in bulk from one place in India to the other place in India, right? So basic amenities to the people, but to meet the various colonial interest, अपना अपना colony का interest को maintain करने के लिए. The roads that were built for the purpose of mobilizing the army within India and drawing out raw material from the countryside to the nearest railway station or the port so that they can send the material to England. Now, what does this line states? This line states that the railways was introduced, or maybe the ports were made or the waterways were made primarily to collect the raw material from different parts of the country, and through railways send it to the ports, and through ports with the water transport send it to England, or maybe they used to dump in the finished product by the use of the railways to distant places in India. The British introduced the railways in 1850 and is considered as one of their most important contributions. The railways affected the structure of Indian economy in two important ways. It enables the people to undertake the long distance travel. It speed up the commercialization of Indian agriculture, which adversely affected the self-sufficiency of the village economies in India. We have already discussed this above. The volume of India's export expanded due to the introduction of railways, but its benefit rarely benefit the Indian people. इंडिया के एक्सपोर्ट जरूर बढ़े हैं रेलवेज के बाद, but we have already discussed that it was primarily to export the to collect the raw material from India and export it to England, and to import the finished good from England to dump it into distant parts of India, right? And along with the development of roads and railways, the colonial rulers also took the measure for developing the inland trade and sea routes. However, these measures were far away from satisfactory. ऐसा नहीं है कि उन्होंने सब नेगेटिव ही किया है. उन्होंने सी रूट्स, इनलैंड ट्रेड रूट्स, ये सब कुछ बनाए हैं, बट दे वर नॉट एबल टू मेक देम प्रॉपरली. So, with respect to infrastructure, they did try to make the economic and social change. They did try to improve the health sector or education sector, and might have helped Indians about in moving from one place to another with the help of railways. Now, what was the impact of railways as such with the Britishers, through the Britishers in India? So there was a positive impact of railways, there was a negative impact of railways. So railways facilitated the expansion of domestic market. As a result, exports and imports of the country shows a significant rise. Second is railways facilitated the commercialization of agriculture. So goods can move to distant places, and we can have the raw material also from such places where economies of scale is possible. Railways enabled people to break the barriers of distance and undertake journeys to far off places. This promoted the cultural affinity among the countrymen. Faster movement of food grain across different parts of the country helped control the spread of famines. So food supplies could reach the people before they were driven to starvation. So जल्दी से जल्दी सामान उनके पास पहुंच जाता था, भूखे नहीं रहते थे वो. Was it only the positive? No, there were certain negatives as well. We have already discussed that they used to collect the raw material. It was only for exploitation of Indian economy. They used to collect the raw material from distant India and export it to their own country, England, and used to dump the finished product of their factories to India. So this was the negatives being done by them also for the agriculture. The next and the most important point that we need to discuss is, were the Britishers positive also? Yes, they were positive. During which times? When they introduced railways, they were positive. The present administration system has been introduced by them only. They have also introduced the currency or the monetary system. We were into barter system prior to that, or maybe the every rural had started with their own currencies. They have started in exporting the capital goods, and we have started manufacturing the advanced technology also. They have integrated the country from different under the different rulers to one ruler. They integrated the country, whole country rather. the, they also started with the commercialization of agriculture. Earlier, we used to manufacture only those goods which were rather than manufacturing, we used to extract the raw material. We used to make the food. We used to grow the food crops for our families only. But they started us and encouraged us to sell the cash crops to them, right? So we can say in the end that yes, Britishers did try to exploit India, but they were the ones who actually helped India in a lot of other things. right? So this is all about the India on the eve of independence.